Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I chopped my hair off, needed a change, needed something different. I didn't often wear my hair out in these videos. I have very fine hair and it just got so knotty every time I wore it out. So when I shared my new do on Instagram and Facebook, a lot of you said I didn't even realise you had long hair because I always wore it in a bun. But I figured if I was always wearing it up, I may as well chop it off. It feels really weird having short hair. I got it done yesterday and so today it looks a bit like bed hair. I need to learn how to style it, but there you go. I needed a change, figured new year, new hair. It's summer here in Australia. It's a good time of year to lighten the colour and go a bit shorter, so that's what I did. Anyway, I just wanted to film this video to talk a bit about the treatment for this new discovery that we've made. The test results that Tim and I got done for the DQ alpha gene came back with a match, which could very well explain our recurrent pregnancy loss, our IVF transfer failures. It could explain our unexplained infertility. It could also explain our poor fertilization results. If you haven't watched my previous two videos, I'll leave a link to them below. Go watch them first because this will make more sense. But I have been reading this book heaps. Is Your Body Baby Friendly by Dr. Alan Beer. He's very well known in the industry. Because it's that time of year, all the specialists are out on their holidays. I received these results in the mail last week and had no idea what to make of them really. I had a little bit of an idea from the letter that came with the results, but I wanted to know more, as you do when you receive these kinds of things. So this book has come in so handy and has explained everything so well. If you've watched my recent videos, you will have heard me tell you the options that we have, seeing as we share a genotype, the DQ alpha genotype. We have a few options. A couple of them aren't ones we're overly keen to jump into straight away, being sperm donor, surrogacy. Those things, obviously we want to try and have a baby of our own. Not that genetics means everything, but I think the majority of couples do want to try and have a baby that's half them and half the person that they love. There is an option out there for us to make pregnancy a possibility for us with this matching gene. So the DQ alpha gene that we are a match for is the 0501, and because we share this gene, half of our pregnancies will be too similar to self and see them as a form of cancer and attack the embryo. Finding out that we're a DQ alpha gene match has explained why I have elevated natural killer cell levels, because there were no other tests, autoimmune tests, that indicated I had an autoimmune issue, except for the positive ANA result, which I received well over 2 years ago. I can't remember actually now, 2016. But I did receive a positive ANA reading back at my first clinic, and it was deemed to not be relevant because all of my other autoimmune tests came back normal. But yesterday I read about positive ANAs and how they are linked to hyperactive natural killer cell levels. I'll again read a little bit out of this book because it's obviously going to be better than me explaining it to you. So anti-nuclear antibodies are often associated with hyperactivated natural killer cells, which can cause an immediate inflammatory response against the embryo, thereby increasing the likelihood of implantation failure or early loss. Alternatively, the damage may occur later in the pregnancy when immune activity against the placenta destroys its ability to function. And then with each miscarriage, more antibodies are produced, making chance of conception even more difficult next time round. Effectively, the woman becomes immunized against having a baby. In my case, the positive ANA reading and the natural killer cells are linked to the DQ alpha gene match that Tim and I share. And I think my natural killer cell levels have just increased over time with all of our miscarriages. We've had 6 losses, and that wouldn't have helped the situation. So the treatment that has been offered to us is lymphocyte membrane immune therapy. I briefly explained what is involved in this treatment in part 1 of my previous video. I will read you the letter that we received about the treatment. So there are 2 treatments that are done 4 weeks apart. So the goal of this treatment is for the woman to form blocking antibodies to her male partner. This will help create an adequate maternal immune system in order to make the uterine environment less hostile to the developing embryo. So what it does is suppresses the immune response in pregnancy. It also suppresses natural killer cell activity, and it produces antibodies to the paternal proteins, blocking antibodies. What I did find out though, and what I'm still quite surprised about, is that it's not an available treatment in the US, which is really, really frustrating, because when I share information like this, obviously a lot of you who watch are in the US, and a part of me just feels really frustrated that I'm putting this suggestion out there, and if you do find out you're a DQ alpha match with your partner, this treatment isn't available for you. And I don't know, I've been trying to get to the bottom of why. Again, in this book it explains everything. The study that was done in the United States, there was a lot of controversy surrounding it, but it was still a banned treatment, even though there were a lot of flaws in the study. I'll read a little bit of what is written in this book, because I know I'm going to probably get flooded with information from you guys alerting me to the fact that it's not available in the US, but I wanted to share with you what I had read and discovered. So it reads, "The phenomenal results of this groundbreaking treatment attracted considerable media attention. Dr. Beer was invited to take part in radio and TV interviews, and in 1996, goes back a bit, People magazine ran an article about his revolutionary therapy entitled Injection of Hope. It described how Dr. Beer was treating women who had endured multiple IVF failures and numerous miscarriages, and having exhausted every conventional avenue, were successful with LIT. Indeed, this remarkable therapy is still making headlines today. In 2005, a national UK newspaper reported how a 33-year-old specialist at the Care Fertility Clinic in Nottingham had suffered a series of miscarriages but went on to deliver a daughter after receiving the white blood cells from her partner. Although LIT can be obtained in many parts of the world, including South America, Australia, the Philippines, Japan, the Middle East, and Europe, it is no longer available anywhere within the US. In 2002, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, suspended the use of lymphocyte immunization therapy pending the results of FDA-approved, randomized, multi-center clinical trials. Their decision was made largely in response to the findings of the controversial 5-year-long recurrent miscarriage study that began in 1992 and was organized by Dr. Carol Ober at the University of Chicago Hospitals. In this trial, paternal lymphocyte therapy was actually found to cause more miscarriages than it prevented. And then the Dr. Ober quote, "We began the study to determine if immunotherapy was effective in preventing recurrent miscarriage, but it's surprisingly ineffective," declared Dr. Ober after the results were published. In her trial, 73% of 179 women became pregnant over a year, 45% miscarried, and the live birth rate for immunized women was only 36%, compared with the 48% in the control group. Given LIT's previous track record of success, this shockingly poor outcome seems quite unbelievable until one looks more closely at the way the study was organised. To construct a meaningful study, one must first understand the requirements of the treatment. There are defined parameters to determine how LIT should be administered and who should receive it. For example, it is important to determine the woman's leukocyte antibody detection levels before LIT is given, to find out whether the treatment is needed and how effective it will be. LIT is more suitable for certain subsets of patients, primarily those who have never had a live birth. If a woman experiences recurrent miscarriage having had a baby, she will probably need other treatments like IVIG. In the recurrent miscarriage study, the majority of participants had already given birth to at least one child. In Dr. Beer's opinion, women with one live-born child who then repeatedly miscarry have category 5 immune problems. I would not have included this subset of women in the trial. However, this was not the only unsuitable patient group to receive treatment. Those who were involved in the lab testing for the recurrent miscarriage study have reported that the entry criteria were relaxed to include women who were positive for anti-nuclear antibodies, allegedly to increase the number of patients taking part. It was already known from the 1991 American Society of Reproductive Immunology Ethics Committee study, that's a mouthful, that LIT did nothing to improve pregnancy rates in patients with certain types of autoantibodies. Women who test positive for anti-nuclear antibodies need additional treatments such as steroids or Clexane. Dr. Beer explains the dangers of such poor patient selection. LIT is not a magic therapy for all immune factors that may underlie recurrent loss. If a patient with Category 1 immune issues also has Category 2, 3, 4 and 5 problems and is only given LIT, the success rate is 60% below that of a woman who receives LIT and are also treated with aspirin, Clexane, steroids, IVIG or other kinds of anti-TNF medication. When all the categories of immune problems are treated, the reproductive outcome is over 80%. Untreated autoimmunity will result in many losses even if LIT therapy is administered. Everyone's case is different, so it makes perfect sense what Alan Beer is saying. Goes on to say, furthermore, in the recurrent miscarriage study, only 26% of women who received LIT developed blocking antibodies, which led to questions about the way the serum was prepared and administered. In Dr. Ober's trial, patients allegedly received far less of an initial dose than they needed, which means success rates would never be optimal. In addition, the lymphocytes used to treat the women were prepared from blood samples that were usually stored overnight. The failure to use fresh donor cells can actually render the treatment useless. To make the treatment effective, the cells need a paternal antigen and a molecule called CD200, which is a tolerance signal. With overnight storage, the CD200 molecule is lost. The serum containing the paternal cells was also stored at room temperature, which meant that the cells lost their anti-abortive effect. So disappointing were the results that the trial was halted. In late 1997, the Board of University of Chicago asked researchers not to immunize any more patients, and those who needed a follow-up immunization were not treated a second time. And then it says, to date, Carol Ober has refused access to any trial material, despite the fact that it was a state-funded study, and as such, information should have been made publicly available. In 1999, Professor Clark asked her for the raw data for the ASRI Ethics Committee database. Dr. Ober informed him that there were confidentiality issues and that she intended to write up the results herself and publish in the Journal of Reproductive Immunology. Professor Clark then sent a second request reassuring her about confidentiality. The database remained unforthcoming. Finally, there was an appeal to the National Institutes of Health, NIH, to ask them for assistance in releasing the data. The verdict was that it belonged to Dr. Ober. It has been reported that $2.2 million of the taxpayers' dollars was spent on this trial, whose data currently remains unavailable to the public. This just is crazy. I don't get it. You'd think things would have changed since then, but from what I could see online, I think it still looks like the LIT treatment is unavailable in the US. And I feel for any of you who, don't have this treatment available to you, if it's what you need to have a baby. In July 1999, the severely flawed recurrent miscarriage study was detailed in an article entitled Mononuclear Cell Immunization in the Prevention of Recurrent Miscarriages, a randomized trial. It firmly concluded that more women miscarried with LIT than without. Although Dr. Beer was listed as a co-principal investigator in the application for the NIH grant, incredibly, he did not see the report until it was published. However, he had seen the trial records, which did not impress him at all. He recalls the post-immunization data was dismal, with less than 30% of women showing a post-immunization response, and only 2 of those were sufficient enough to be cleared for the cycle of conception. He expressed his concerns to Professor Clark in August 1999, saying many of the patients included in this study were very autoimmune and were tested for Category 5 immune problems. This study is about inoculation, not immunization. We must do everything possible to expose these misdemeanors. Dr. Beer wrote a letter to the publisher explaining his concerns and saying that he had not been consulted regarding the interpretation or analysis of the results. He also outlined some of the report's flaws, the suboptimal standards of immunization, and the fact that karyotypically abnormal pregnancy losses had been included in the final statistics, which had further decreased the success rate. LIT cannot prevent chromosomally abnormal pregnancies, which is obvious. I don't understand how this Dr. Ober ran a trial this flawed. Professor Clark, Dr. Colum, and others also produced an analysis of the discrepancies, which were also published. Dr. Mowbray, now Professor of Immunopathology at London's Imperial College of Medicine, also questioned the trial's integrity, saying that storing the father's cells overnight might have been the problem. It does work, he confirmed. I have seen 5,000 couples with repeated miscarriages and have had very high success rate and very low abnormality rate. All these rebuttals were later to be overshadowed by the publication of the influential Cochrane Review in 2003, written by Dr. Jim Scott, a colleague of Dr. Ober, who was also involved in the recurrent miscarriage study. This official-sounding paper comprised of a collection of small studies with two main features in common: faulty methodology and a consequently damning verdict on white cell therapy. The FDA decision to suspend the use of lymphocyte immunization therapy in 2002 was partly due to political pressure from an Atlantic Monthly journalist who, according to the FDA government official, regularly called the department insisting that action should be taken in view of the Ober's trial findings. And then there's another doctor called Dr. Hill, who's also an outspoken critic on lymphocyte immunotherapy, very outspoken about it and did a lot of lectures. Among those who heard him speak was Dr. William Matzner, an internationally respected board-certified immunologist. Dr. Matzner recalls, when Hill was talking, he would speak like a preacher, not a scientist. He didn't talk a lot about scientific data because he didn't really have a lot of it, whereas there's quite a bit of scientific data to back up LIT. The whole idea of blocking antibodies has been known by transplant immunologists for years, and to rheumatologists, the whole approach of using paternal white blood cells to build a female response that protects the pregnancy makes perfect sense. Anyway, the fight goes on. It goes on and on. It's been a big process trying to get the FDA to change their mind back. Sorry if this is boring you, but there's another little bit I just want to include. I want to say that Dr. Beer, who has actually passed away now, opened a state-of-the-art testing lab in California. He also continued to collect LIT data from Europe, Asia and South America. Despite the many setbacks of the past, Dr. Beer remains hopeful that an application for a further trial of lymphocyte immune therapy will take place. The question is, will someone allow us the chance to prove what we believe to be the truth? And he has passed away, I believe. Now, I've probably bored you enough with reading this book, but one thing I found very interesting about natural killer cell levels is that having natural killer cells reside in the uterus, apparently that can affect women's egg quality and they can become fragmented, often resulting in poor quality embryos with cells that divide slowly or not at all. So that was another kind of explanation as to our odd fertilization reports. Possibly it would make sense as to why we have had odd fertilization reports. But anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that LIT therapy and explain what it says in this book and why it's not available in the US, because that is a big deal. I don't know, if any of you know more about it, let me know down below. Hopefully it is something that changes soon and will be available. Thank you everyone for all of the positive comments on my last two videos. So many of you are so excited that we may have found our answer. Finally, just an explanation as to why it's been so difficult. So it is more information that I am so blessed we've finally discovered. And I'm hoping this LIT treatment will help my body to protect any future embryos, and I guess time will tell. My current specialist is still on leave, so I'll call him next week to arrange the first treatment. It ain't cheap, but I'll go into more details about that in another video. Thanks so much for watching. Wishing you each all the success for this year. If you have any questions, please leave them down below and I'll speak to you in my next video. Bye guys.